Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark. We're continuing with his One Piece reviews, and we are checking out Punk Hazard. I quite enjoyed this. It wasn't the most amazing story, but it was nice to get more on lore. I liked the little body switching stuff, that was cool. A little insight on the devil fruit stuff. We learned a little bits and bobs about Vegapunk, which I thought was cool. And what was the other thing I had in my head that I wanted to mention then? Yeah, we've got a mentioning of Wano here, which I do believe is a big story arc that we're currently on at the moment now as the release. So yeah, I think this is sowing a lot of seeds for like a lot of other stuff that's going to build up later. So let's see what Mark had to say on this, shall we? Punk Hazard. Lore's so freaking cool.
One Piece's Punk Hazard.
Whoop,
The
whoop.
26th arc I've covered, a tale that spans 46 chapters that honestly felt a little like 86 chapters. But you know
Oh
what?
wow,
Now that
nah,
I finished it and had
nah.
the correct amount of time to digest everything that happened, I think I understand what Oda was trying to do with, and in many ways
He
succeeded.
was funny. Always had stuff stuck to his face, didn't he?
Last week I covered the treacherous depths of Fishman Island and dealt with some really heavy themes and characters. So
Yes.
I was in need of something a little less intense and something a bit more traditional in terms of One Piece storytelling. Thankfully, I got that with this.
Yeah, definitely,
because
yeah,
it's all good in the frozy, misty, fiery tundra of Punk
Hazard.
And today I plan on exploring it from top to bottom, explaining myself in full. And so, without further
Gas.
ado, I'm totally not Mark, and these are my first
He was a
impressions on,
weird
thoughts
villain.
on, and review for
Oof.
my very first steps into the brave new world of One Piece. This is the long-winded, the intense,
The long-winded,
and at times extremely clever Punk Hazard.
It was clever at times. Lore's very clever. The way he was tricking people with the hearts and that.
I'll do classical gas.
Classical gas.
Punk Hazard is a funny one. On one hand, I found myself enjoying it towards the end and the beginning, but for a section of the story that wasn't super
The
small,
middle.
I found myself dreading the next page turn and worrying about composition way more than I thought I would.
Huh.
Yeah, you heard me. Composition. I'll explain what I mean a little more clearly later on, but for now, generally, I will say that as arcs in One Piece go, I thought this was pretty good. I'm happy I read it, but I thought it suffered from pacing issues during its telling, as well as some clarity issues, and
I don't think it was that bad.
page composition and dialogue. But more specifically, in essence, this is a pretty standard One Piece story. They stumble upon a new, somewhat troubled island before they get caught up in rabbit holes and traps that are much
They
more
always get
treacherous than they anticipated.
in trouble
There's
with the
some
stuff that's
really
going on,
great
don't they?
action, wonderful character exchanges, and some genuinely fantastic surprises that honestly caught me more off guard than any other swerve that might have been in the
She's
series.
sneaky.
Maybe. And once again, as Oda often does, the story kicks off in an incredibly strong and interesting way. As readers and audience members at this stage of
Think of the
story,
Sasuke scene from
we are
Naruto
primed
Bridge
for
with that,
enjoyment
actually.
and excitement. We've been waiting a very long time to, at long last, get to the new world of One Piece,
Yeah.
inhabited by the very emperors of the sea
Whoa.
themselves. And Lord knows we want to get revenge on Akainu and Blackbeard.
Hell
for all the
yes.
stuff they
Oh, I
did.
can't wait to see Blackbeard again.
And so, thanks to those feelings that are obviously in us right now, we are already excited to see what comes next.
Hell yeah.
And trust me, Oda is completely aware of all of this. Kicking things off with an extremely character-rich,
Frankie's hair's
slightly
constantly
understated
changing, though.
character interaction on the Sunny. Nami taking her eyes off the boys for 10 minutes to have a shower leads to them almost getting eaten by a giant fish and getting sucked into a vortex. And it's isolated moments like this that I really appreciate, where we get to see and experience the dysfunctional family the Straw Hats have ultimately become. And what's also great is that
It's nice seeing them all
we
together.
take moments of reprieve to just bask in the world it's created too. You see, immediately after following this instance, the crew, in a moment
The
of wonder, become
whales.
surrounded by giant whales, the same species as Laboon, which is kind of awesome because if no one told me that they had been on the other side of the red line now, I know that they were by virtue of the fact
Just
that
seeing
I know that
them.
these whales are indigenous to this
Yeah.
specific area of the world. And I know this because the story told me this hundreds of chapters ago.
Way back.
It's instances like this when I experience well.
And then Brooks singing made sense as well. It's so cool.
How much I've absorbed regarding this world and its world building. It's a really unique and wonderful feeling knowing that we are exploring a story that's consistent and alive.
Hell yes.
But all is not well, and using this moment of calm.
Oh, they didn't mention Brooks singing.
Mystery and tension, the comms on the Sunny, once its services in the new world immediately start to pick up an SOS signal from an unknown island not pointed to by any of their log poses in their possession, which on its own is rather interesting and leads them down a series of rabbit holes of discovery and adventure. But let's take
Yes.
a moment to
Adventure.
consider something else first, or at least I will. This piece of information sort of took me by surprise, so it's theory time. At this point in the story, we've gotten into a routine of sailing, looking at the log pose, pointing
Yes.
to the next island, chilling out on that island for a bit, and then repeating the sequence. But Punk Hazard was different. This was an island that, if the SOS hadn't been picked up on their comms, would never have been discovered by Luffy and his crew.
Yeah, they were going somewhere else, weren't
What's
they?
more curious is that Smoker, later in the story, doesn't have a problem finding the island at all, which leads me to believe that there might be islands that can't be found unless the government so chooses.
Ooh.
And here's my theory.
Huh.
The secrets that the world government are so hell-bent on hiding could be concealed on an island that cannot be discovered by either anyone because the poses have been destroyed, or strictly by higher-ups in the world government. Perhaps even the One Piece is there. But yeah, just a theory for now, but totally possible. Right?
Whoa.
Regardless, Luffy and the crew...
Interesting. Whoa. Put those aluminium hats on.
It's on fire, there's someone to be rescued there. Smoker was listening to their entire conversation. And
Smoker's so cool.
And if that wasn't already tense enough, once Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Robin go to investigate the island a little bit more while the others stay on the ship, this happens.
It's a dragon!
The fight was way more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Class.
And to be perfectly honest, sprinkled in enough mystery to hold my attention almost immediately. So, naturally, when Luffy does pull an embodied pair of legs,
it's so weird.
I was left scratching my head a little bit
what?
as the legs effectively communicated through farting.
I never thought about that. How did he talk? Oh, yeah.
Communicated through farting. That's a real sentence.
The poots. Oh, that's what it... Right. That's what it meant. Right. I missed that. I totally missed that.
Unlike the other arcs that introduce us to the
Amazing.
inhabitants and cultures of the given area first,
Jeez.
Punk Hazard is a little different. The island was once upon a time a government-run facility led
Yeah, but then the two guys had a fight, didn't they?
person that's mentioned almost as often as Luffy, and yet we still haven't seen them in person yet. However, since a particular series of events changed everything that I will absolutely be talking about a little bit more later, this island is now recognized as a wasteland by the government that no longer uses it. And with this knowledge, when it becomes apparent that there's something much, much more sinister going on in this abandoned island, the contrast is striking.
Mysterious.
The ship. I honestly love this moment because it establishes a bunch of different things, including the antagonist of the arc itself, but also gives us a goal beyond exploring witches for the gang to regroup. And in this effort, we get to understand and become exposed to a host of...
It's always cool when they get separated and they go on their different little adventures.
Like, this guy's head chopped up into pieces in the same cell that they were held in. Clearly, this is the
Put it back
headpiece of
together.
the samurai puzzle that Luffy and the others began a scene ago, which adds even more purpose behind them reuniting there and then. This little samurai guy needs to find the rest of his body.
I like him.
Might as well help him. Oh wait, he's a massive douchebag. And this particular samurai's name is... this. I'm determined to get through a single video without mispronouncing a name, by the way. And to be honest, things only get more interesting from here.
Kinemon?
He burst them out of the cell using his weaponry and lasers.
Lasers!
Awesome.
Fireball
Once
lasers.
they did get out, my confusion went from a 7 to a 10. I have several questions.
Yes.
So yeah, this story might answer a question here and there, but my god, if it isn't hell-bent on laying down 10 new questions for every one it answers.
Every time you turn some pages, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
The way it does too. Punk Hazard is, in every sense of the word, a setup arc for the one to immediately follow it. But that's not to say that it doesn't have anything to offer on its own either.
Yeah, I liked like little information bits about this.
And consequence. And in exploring these themes, we see our main characters interact with some truly chilling and heartwarming characters, creating wonderful moments like when Sanji cast his pride to the wayside to embrace his humanity by helping out this snarky but defenseless samurai. And let's not forget about the damn kids.
Yeah,
Nami decides
they're big. What's going on?
Impossible to escape these jumpsuit-wearing goons that are pursuing them out of this facility. Nami feels an overbearing level of responsibility for these little and not so little children who are begging for her to save them. But perhaps, most interestingly, we discover some fascinating tidbits regarding the history of this island, thanks to the main focus of this arc and the main villain, Caesar the Clown, mad scientist of the now defunct Punk Hazard. Turn myself into a pickle, Morty! And it's at this point the story splits into 5 different subplots, though really there are 2 major ones, and these 2 major ones should be obvious at this point. The first being Team Luffy, comprised of himself, Robin, Zoro, Usopp, and the Samurai Legs as they try to fight
the Samurai Legs. He wants to be a
second major point of view
centaur?
comes in the form of Team Nami, who were just captured and are now stuck within the facility of Punk Hazard. With her is Sanji, Frankie, Chopper, and the disembodied talking head of the Samurai.
Kinemon.
Oh, and now a whole bunch of children, apparently. In addition to this, there are 3 other points of view that sort of vary in importance. One is that of Caesar the Clown, as he reacts and makes plans surrounding his experiments and deals with the sudden appearance of the Straw Hat crew. There's also Smoker, Tashigi, and the G.
There is a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
There's Brooke, who was left on the ship when the others were kidnapped. Probably because they thought he was dead, and to be honest, his part of the story, while minor, it does play a large role in the story in terms of structure. He is literally the only reason Team Luffy find out about what happened to the rest of the crew and the Sunny. And to be honest, so far, everything in the story is working for me. There's some tight pacing thanks to some well-placed minor fight scenes.
Yeah, love fights.
Really interesting mysteries, and now we have a goal to supplement multiple points of view. It's all gravy. And that's when a really fascinating piece of info is dropped. You see, all this time we've been on this island, a large part of the conversation surrounding it have been about why it's so icy and why it's so fiery at different parts of it. And we learned this visually by way of Nami noticing the clouds above the fiery hellscape we were initially presented with, and then of course that's confirmed in the scenes with Brooke. So how did this island come to be the way it is? Fiery on one side and icy on the other? Well, Smoker answers that question.
Yeah, it was the fight, wasn't it?
About this is that it makes perfect sense. In fact, it makes so much sense that if you or I were in the right frame of mind when looking at this question, there's a good chance that we could actually answer it for ourselves because we were given the answer back on Fishman Island. Back then we were told about a vicious battle that
they had a fight, didn't they? Yeah.
And Okiji competing for the right to be the new fleet admiral. It happened about a year ago and lasted 10 days. And would you know it, Punk Hazard was the site of that very battle, and since the battle's completion has been in a constant state of hot and cold. I love this not only because
that just shows how powerful they are, man.
That piece of visual information, but Punk Hazard, as we know, is an island not pointed to by any of the log poses. It's been abandoned for quite some time, and it's very close to the new HQ of the Navy. Like, everything about this sudden new piece of information really felt like someone putting the last piece of the jigsaw in place. It made perfect sense.
It did make sense.
Some really interesting lore surrounding the island of Punk Hazard, and that's only part of the small island's history. As 3 years before that very fight, a massive explosion happened that wiped out life in the area. This was the reason why Okiji and
they blamed it, didn't they? Say it was Vegapunk's thing going wrong, but in reality it was Caesar.
How did the catastrophe happen? And if that wasn't enough, Smoker arrives on the supposedly abandoned island, knocking on the door, and wouldn't you know who opens it but Law.
That was sick. It's like, wait, what?
Involved in this situation, and once again added even more curiosity.
He's a warlord. I like this as well, yeah, because we find out Boogie's a warlord as well. Isn't this when we find out all the who the warlords actually are after this time skip?
This arc was bananas with a capital B, and now we are being reintroduced to Trafalgar Law. Now a warlord of the sea, as it looks like he might be involved with the goings-on on the island. But this story isn't perfect, and it does have its flaws. And one of those flaws that came to my attention around this time surrounded the equipment of Usopp. No matter what the circumstances,
he'd always have something.
You best believe that he has some random thing perfectly specific for this occasion in his arsenal of random gadgets and projectiles. Now, this isn't a huge issue, but it did irk me a little bit because we aren't made aware of the materials he has from the get-go. It comes across as convenient more than anything else, and when something convenient comes out of nowhere, it just feels lazy. The character of Usopp explains his supplies by saying that all sorts of strange things were on the island that he was training on, but without telling us what it is that he found, it just feels like a random grab bag of whatever the team needs to get out of this situation.
To an extent, I suppose.
But it's significantly less
don't bother me that much.
Had before, with him trying to figure out his way around different obstacles while also knowing what he has and what he's capable of. Like, remember his fight with Luffy?
Oh, mate, he used so much stuff.
Battle with Perona. These fights specifically worked because we knew what was in his arsenal, and the fun came from how he bluffed or came up with amazing new ways of using this sandbox of abilities we all knew he had. So I think that's something that, at least for right now, New World Usopp is missing for me.
Oh no, I like it. It shows that he's grown. He's very confident in the way that he approaches things now.
I was hoping that it was a trap set by someone that wanted something from them, or anything nefarious really, but it was again pure happenstance. The centaurs that Luffy decked earlier were being attacked by the samurai that they encountered in the cell, and thus they, in desperation, made this distress signal. Had this not happened, Luffy and the crew wouldn't have found this island.
No, that's true, yeah.
Again, these things aren't anything major, but it doesn't feel as well thought out or as tightly told as the stories like Alabasta or Skypia were for me. Now, let me be clear. At this point in the story, I am still all in, and to be honest, it was easy.
Okay. It's weird, it's like, it's not that big of a deal yet. You still going on about.
Now,
Yay! Cool. And then
so
Smoker's like, what?
different narrative threads now, and boy is it interesting. As Law finally shows us the powers of his devil fruit ability.
Oh, mate, so OP.
The minds of the Straw Hats running past in an instant before removing all of the communicators from the Navy present. In Law taking this course of action, we learn that whatever.
And he takes the ship and just like, it's like, what the frick?
Know that he's there. Again, this is all interesting stuff, and what's more is that this is followed by another great action sequence, which, I gotta be honest, this arc is filled with. I enjoyed almost every fight in this arc more than what we got on Fish.
Look at that, that's so cool.
If that's a controversial take, but there it is. The fight that takes place is that of Law versus Smoker, who is at this time a vice admiral in the Navy, having been promoted from captain over the last 2 years. This particular fact.
You knew he was going somewhere though, the way he was introduced in there.
The progression of the main characters, but also the secondary and tertiary characters.
Yeah, it's cool. The whole world, not things ignored, like.
Who has been promoted to fill the position of captain that Smoker vacated. And during this fight between Smokey and Traffy, in addition to Smoker's grit and determination being on full display with some great choreography, seriously, this is like the best Smoker fight in the series
It's
so
cool,
far.
yeah, it is.
He also implements a sea prism-tipped weapon to fight Law with, which not only is cool, but given the fact that Smoker is also a devil fruit wielder, it serves to communicate his confidence in his own abilities to hold on to this weapon, such that it can't be used against him.
It won't affect him, yeah.
Like that are subtle, but they go a long way in helping to communicate an individual character to an audience.
Oh yeah, he's very capable. Very capable.
Using the op fruit abilities takes out Smoker's heart from his chest before swapping his mind with Tashigi. Also, speaking of mind swaps, I think now is a good time to discuss the mind swapping aspect of this story.
I thought it was fun. It was fun. And he can control it now, which is cool.
While it makes sense, doesn't do anything in the story except delay its events from unfolding. At first,
It's a fun little thing to happen.
The body of Sanji and watching Frankie struggle inside the body of Chopper, but for every Nami inside of Frankie's body to laugh at, there's a Sanji inside of Nami's body and a Smoker inside of Tashigi's body that's only there for fan service. And when I say this, I'm not saying that they are never funny. Sometimes they are. Specifically, the way Smoker, purely out of habit and comfort, insists on sitting with his shirt open in Tashigi's body.
Yeah, and she's very reserved and like.
Really fast, and ultimately, with everyone whose minds have been swapped, because they aren't used to the bodies of their crewmates, every task they need to achieve becomes a punchline or extremely annoying to get through. And
I don't think it was annoying.
So Nami is in Frankie's body, right? Frankie is in Chopper's body, Sanji is in Nami's body, and Chopper is in Sanji's body. Now, to some of you, that might not sound super complicated to understand, but when you have all of them arguing in the same scene surrounded by all the different characters and children, suddenly it becomes incredibly confusing. So much so that in the middle of one of these chapters, Oda makes them wear these masks of their actual character in order to avoid
so you know who they are, yeah.
Not to mention a sharp uptick in the number of characters drawn into the speech bubbles that they are speaking in. Simply there to help the readers remember who is in what body. I have no idea if this is easier to follow in the anime, but in the manga it got pretty annoying in parts, specifically when the Straw Hats regroup, adding even more
I didn't find it annoying. I thought it was alright. I thought it was quite funny. I enjoyed it.
In this part, I really started to find
each to their own.
For the first time ever reading this manga, in fact, and this is why. While I could read and get through all of the information relatively easy, it was by no means easy to understand what's happening or going on just by looking at these pages. There's tons of text, tiny panels, and so much conflicting imagery that when you look at it, your brain might not know what's happening on it.
I kind of liked that they used the bubble to cover Caesar's face because we still haven't seen him yet.
Obviously, you're supposed to read it. It has words. It's a manga, after all, and I totally understand that point of view. That means it's a visual medium as much, if not more, than it is a written one. And in this instance, I really don't think Oda was making the most out of the visual components of this medium. So often, he leans so much on the words rather than the drawings to speak for themselves. And speaking of the text, so much of the text propagated throughout these chapters are flavor, with characters saying inconsequential stuff or reacting to things that only serve to make the conversations feel more authentic. In many instances, I can totally appreciate stuff like that. It's a large part of what makes this series as successful and immersive as it is, but there's a time and place for everything. And when I turn the page and I'm faced with this useless text and a panel structure that isn't intuitive, it makes me not want to read as much as I could. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to demonstrate what I think good panel structure is. I'd like to point you guys to these random pages from early Dragon Ball Z.
Of course, we're doing Dragon Ball Z.
By no means as narratively complex or competent.
Nowhere near, yeah.
Visually, I believe Dragon Ball is on another level narratively to many other manga, not just One Piece. Manga is a visual format, and Akira
Yes,
Toriyama
very much
uses
so.
this format to the best of its ability in order to communicate communicate to his audience what he wanted to do on a given page, with clarity and a panel structure that would suck anyone into reading. Now, I get that a lot of people might want the dialogue and cluttered panel structure because they feel it gives more information to them and that's what they're after, and I can totally see that.
I'd like to know what's going on.
But I can only speak from my own point of view, and personally, I don't see why we can't have both. Heck, One Piece from the first chapter through to Enies Lobby was paneled extremely well, so I see no reason why it can't be like that again, with some minor alterations and some smart use of...
Well, there's a lot more going on and a lot more characters now.
So much more visually engaging while sacrificing almost nothing in terms of story, but alas, that wasn't the case with these chapters, and as a result, it felt more difficult to get through this arc than any other I had read through in the past. And to be honest, this is a shame because I actually really enjoyed a ton of things that were going on in this arc. I liked how the focus of the arc kept shifting as new and exciting things came to the forefront, like, at this point in the story, the team reunite and split into 3 groups. Nami and Chopper stay with the kids who are going through withdrawals from the drugs that...
Yeah, that was messed up, that.
Me right, this is an arc
you want your candy.
Then there's the team of Sanji, Brook, and Zoro who ran out after the samurai looking for his kid, as Sanji himself felt responsible for his well-being, which I honestly really enjoyed. And finally, the team of
Yeah,
Luffy,
you seeing that?
Subplots,
It's like they're pirates, but they're actually okay.
to confront Caesar about the children and the shocking symptoms that they are exhibiting after his care. And in retaliation to this, Caesar enlists the work of the Yeti brothers, giant hunters in this icy tundra that we've not yet seen before. And as I mentioned moments ago, these guys only present an issue to the Straw Hats because they are after getting their bodies swapped and don't know how to fight in
Yeah, that's true. They do surprise them, like, very much, don't they?
To handicap the Straw Hats by surrounding them in water has handicapped them in this way by swapping their minds. So, in other words, the Straw Hats haven't had a single worthwhile challenge since the return to Shabaudi. And perhaps that's why I've enjoyed fights with the Dragon and Smoker so much. One is a novelty and the other doesn't...
It's interesting as well to realise that the Devil Fruit abilities stick to the body and not the person's mind.
They shoot Brownbeard in the face, execution style, with these massive cannons point blank.
Because, was it, Smoker can't use his Devil Fruit abilities when he's in her body, but she could potentially use Smoker's Devil Fruit abilities while being in his body. It doesn't stick to the person, it's the body.
Which I thought was really good strategy considering they had no chance once Luffy actually arrived to save her. That is, if Luffy even had to fight them. This section here is the single most important part of the arc and, to be honest, really piqued my interest back to the levels of excitement. Law moves to Luffy and asks whether or not he would like to form an alliance. Up until this point, I had been under the impression that given Law was working alongside Caesar and his mad experiments, and that given he's a warlord of the sea, he would be firmly in the corner of the already established side and forces of Caesar and Punk Hazard.
But no!
That's far from the truth.
Yeah.
Law is on his own side and no one else's. He explains that Luffy and he have a common goal right now and that together they could take down an emperor of the sea, which is a massive thing to say still at this point of the story.
Jesus.
In typical Luffy fashion, he agrees to the proposal and elects to form an
Isn't it later where he's like, we're gonna take down all the emperors?
So, okay, here's the lowdown. Caesar is hell-bent on getting these kids back to conduct further weird experiments on. He's
trying to make them into giants, isn't he?
Godlike figure to his subordinates, gaining their trust, and he has this massive demonstration planned in order to sell his work on the black market to someone who goes by the name of Joker. Something Law mentioned is that Caesar is the only one that can produce this chemical compound called SAD, used by some extremely important people on the black market that he again sells through a vendor called Joker, who becomes extremely important later, and I'll get to that.
My
Together,
god.
the forces of Luffy, the Straw Hats, and Law have to work together in order to stop all of this from happening and to save the little kids. And since Law is on their team, he switches Chopper back into his body, Frankie back into his, and Nami into Sanji's body because he's still out with Zoro and Brook looking for the samurai, which they do eventually find.
Which is cool.
This is where the story started to pick up for me again. There's a little bit of will they, won't they, with Sanji's group still out in the wilderness someplace, and there's a clear...
Oh, his sword is sick.
Help the kids and stop
Isn't it
Caesar.
fire? It can cut through
Let's see how
fire.
Punk Hazard stuck the landing. So it comes to light that this Caesar guy was responsible for why this island, Punk Hazard, became deserted
In the first place, yeah.
Apparently, 4 years ago, against Dr. Vegapunk's wishes, he blew up the facility and showered the area in poison, destroying most life. And he alone survived unscathed because of his Devil Fruit ability.
Yes.
And this conclusion I actually enjoyed, but there are still aspects to it that I thought could have been improved greatly, and Once again, it came in the visual clarity department, and at this point I feel like I should reiterate that I am not criticizing the anime's visuals here, I simply haven't seen it. I am just commenting on my experience with the manga this week, and once Luffy, Law, and all the other Straw Hats with the samurai converge on the base from various points, things started to feel a little cluttered and messy again for me. Now, of course, during this time a lot of stuff is happening. Sanji, in an act of selflessness, rescues the samurai's body from below the water, locating it using his haki, and there are plenty of really interesting and cool moments where haki is used by both Zoro and Sanji in this story, which I really liked. Luffy and Law join forces with Smoker, but ultimately get captured. Joker's revealed to be Doflamingo. Caesar plans to do some weapons demonstration using some freaky gas to kill everybody that no one can touch, and it's invading the compound. Okay, look, long story short, this is all bad stuff happening.
A lot of bad things.
To all the Straw Hats and Law in a situation where they need to capture Caesar alive and cannot get touched by this gas, all the while trying to save a bunch of giant savage children suffering from a bad come down. So yeah, all things considered, not super bad. That is until we meet this guy.
Yeah, he's got burger on his face.
Okay, so this is a bit of a bigger problem. This guy's tough and ends up picking a fight with a bunch of them in this effort. And to be honest, the fights in this section were the only.
So he's in the Navy, but he was a pirate, hiding in the Navy troops, working for Doflamingo.
Sanji cracking his shit against Virgo's shit.
Boom.
Or even Smoker and Law's altercation with Virgo, and Law ultimately getting the upper hand in the end.
Oh mate, that was cool. He's like, you won't be able to cut me, and he just goes, yeah.
And this is abundantly evident with the characters like Usopp, Chopper, and Frankie, who throughout this story get plenty of wonderful moments to shine.
Yeah, Frankie's robot thing was just like, okay.
Some of the aspects I didn't really enjoy. Caesar as a villain didn't do it really at all for me. He came across as a two-dimensional cartoon that didn't really click. I knew he offered no challenge to Luffy, really, and his motivation and justifications for what he has done did seem far too outlandishly devious to even be remotely credible for me. I mean, he seriously looks like he should be from one of those old Hanna-Barbera cartoons from the 60s, and not in a good way. One thing I thought that I was really going to enjoy was the keep-away nature of this set piece for the conclusion. Given that they were all in an enclosed space with the gas slowly filling up the various chambers, I thought the manga did a pretty poor job visually of informing us about the area. In the past, I thought Oda did a brilliant job at establishing the areas like Alabasta, Enies Lobby, Skypiea, Barate, Arlong Park, and
we got the maps and stuff showing where each section was and that, and where they were going, and how they're travelling, and how he was trying to keep the gas going that way.
But this compound laboratory situation in this arc is very boring and everything looks the exact same. And in the same way Oda had to make the others wear masks because the things weren't clear enough when they swapped their bodies, in this section we have to look at map after map after map of the area in order to understand or have any sense of where people are fighting and where everyone is in relation to each other. And the only rooms that look somewhat distinct are the SAD room and the control room, and almost no fighting takes place in these rooms beyond Law, Smoker, and Virgo's situation that, again, doesn't last very long. Needless to say, despite liking the concept behind this section, despite liking the gas idea to create tension, and despite all the effort that went into it, I thought the environment chosen in this instance really held it back from what it could have been. Now, this is obviously just my impression from reading the manga, and who knows, I might react
that was sick,
how it was portrayed in the anime.
No.
As of right now, I was ecstatic to finally be leaving the facility and braving the outside world as the crew, Law, G5 Smoker, and Tashigi all escaped with their lives from the place. And again, the fights that took place in this compound were fantastic. I loved Luffy's altercation. I really liked what Smoker and Law were doing together. And when
that was
eventually
cool.
cut down Virgo, that was really
sick. Yeah.
Once again, highlighting that this new generation's time has finally come.
Yeah, man.
They're
stepping up.
They're stepping up. Now we're coming to what I think was probably the most shocking part of the entire story. You see, there's a section of this that leans heavily on the Delafrune abilities of Trafalgar Law. You see, he has this ability, as it's already been established, to remove a part of someone from their bodies while also keeping them alive. And using this ability, many people in this story have their hearts removed from their bodies, like Smoker and Law's very own. And in an effort to prove his allegiance to Caesar, he gives his own heart to him in exchange for Monet.
This was
Now,
class.
the character I didn't really speak about during this video was that of a character, Harpy Lady, called Monet. She appears very early on. And
He's given him her heart, hasn't he? And doesn't he squeeze it thinking he's got the upper hand and then stops her from pressing the button?
In exchange for Monet's, taking out both of them and offering up his own to Caesar as collateral. In essence, putting his life in Caesar's hands. This whole thing was basically to act as a truce of sorts during the story. Now, this was established before the final act. Like, this was known going into the final battle. But this was genius. As when Caesar was lying outside the compound after being punched into oblivion and betrayed by Law, he still had the heart given to him by Law. And while this is happening, Monet is about to blow up the lab in the same devastating fashion Caesar did 4 years ago, per his instructions. Orders her to do this, and as she moves to flip the switch, Caesar, in a moment of anger, stabs the heart of Smoker. But nothing happens. As it turns out, the heart he is given to Caesar wasn't Smoker at all, but Monet's, and thus Caesar...
Which is class. I like that. That was cool.
I friggin' loved this little swerve and never saw it coming.
No, I didn't see that coming at all. I was like, that's sick. That was really cool.
Caesar's motivation to not kill Law right away once he figures out that he's after turning on him, because he already has a built-in desire to kill him by using this new gas that he's developed to show to the criminal underground of the world. And to be perfectly honest, that as well as the conclusion of this arc really helped it finish strong. Now that Law has in his possession Caesar wearing some C-prism shackles that Usopp managed to swipe very intelligently, you gotta remember Caesar's the only guy who can produce this SAD chemical compound stuff that goes on the black market and is sold to emperors of the sea like Kaido, who uses it to make animalistic zone-type devil fruit users for his army. Now that he has Caesar...
Crazy stuff.
Flamingo, a main vendor on the black market that supplies Kaido with all of this stuff, now has his supply cut off and is now at the mercy of Law, which he doesn't appreciate at all, but he has no choice but to do as he says. While I didn't adore this arc like I normally do with the vast majority of One Piece's stories, I still think that this one was overall enjoyable despite its minor misgivings I have with it.
No, I didn't have that many problems with it. Like, I thought it was decent. What about his son as well, with the dragon transformations and stuff, and the devil fruit as the gas was coming over in that. Like, we got loads of little hints of like loads of random stuff.
But perhaps my favorite aspect of this entire story is that I could feel like it was building up to something big.
Right.
Doflamingo is a really different and
So
interesting
he just goes right, I'm coming in, just gonna sort it out.
into Dressrosa next week. However, fair warning, Dressrosa as a single arc is over 100 chapters long. That is too much for me to cover in a single video. And
It's
so
decent
I will
though, I'm
split
loving it.
up into two
I'm halfway through
separate
Dressrosa at the
parts.
moment.
I hope that's alright with you, and with that said comes the end of the video. I've been totally not Mark.
Doflamingo's
I'll
sick.
see you all next week for Dressrosa Part 1, and thank you so much for watching.
Cool. Oh, Gladiator, Coliseum, because of the Battle Royale. I get it. Yeah, I like Punk Hazard. I mean, I get what he's saying. It's not the most amazing like story arc out of everything that we've had so far, but I don't have that many problems with it. I don't know. I like the little seeds that it's planting. Like, yeah, didn't we see something with the... Was it artificial devil fruits? Like, the smoke came over as there was, like, fruit in the thing, and one of them was a devil fruit, or it turned into a devil fruit. And loads of the stuff, it's like, huh. So, yeah, I feel like everything... nothing's just placed there for, like, nothingness. I feel like with One Piece, everything is really important. And it just constantly building up to something absolutely humongous. So, yeah. I liked it, and I'll be checking out part 1 of the Dressrosa review next week, and then so on and so forth. Thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, a link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all there to help support the channel. Greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that. And thank you all for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click the like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below, let me know what I should watch, discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.